we got it systemized to the point where we weren't even in it, and it was still generated $1 million. Why? Because it is very systematic. If you have great SOPs in place, we had, I think, 4 virtual assistants. So with our 4 virtual assistants, they ran the whole store. They ran the whole business. And we just checked in, made sure everything was running effectively. We sit there and we said, okay, we need to tweak some things here. We need to work on this. We need to axe this. But we didn't have to be in the day-to-day grind. Because there's a guy who reached out to me where he was watching us from afar, and he picked up, because I was posting about it, what we were doing, how we were doing it, and he followed what we were doing and ended up generating $1 million himself, which is cool. Like, I thought that was awesome. This guy just watched my stuff, but he said that he does it all by himself. He said, I'm doing 200-300 orders a day alone. And I'm just like, dude, that is so much because you're doing so much by yourself. You're just going to get burned out.
It's like day trading.
And so, like, having, just as you said, with e-commerce, and especially doing it this way, you can systemize it out to where you have I would suggest virtual assistants, because there's some great ones out there and you don't have to pay them a lot, but it is a lot for them. I want to break that stigma too, that some people used to hear that we were paying our VAs $3 an hour. I think we worked them up to $3.50. And they would say $3.50, that's not even a livable wage. In America, it's not. But in the Philippines, where we had our VAs, that's almost the equivalent of making $17, $18 an hour. So the average is much, much more for them there. And for them, is like they had 8-hour shifts. They were off after that. We kept up with all their time in one place. They always got paid on the same time. So for anyone who could come in and look at it, they could just take it over easily, because it was already so systemized that you could really plug and play. And that's the power of e-commerce if you can get into it and do it right.
Wow, I think you might be kind of psychic, because it's like you're pulling the questions out of my head and providing the answer before I actually ask the question. So I was going to ask, is it possible to make this business fully passive or mostly passive? And you already said yeah, but we have talked about some SOPs. Like, you give maybe a few examples of what SOPs does someone need to have in place if they have any dreams of making this truly passive or mostly passive?
I would say the biggest one is to make sure, especially if you use people like we do with VAs, especially from the Philippines, they don't speak English the best. It's not their first language, but you got to have the right people in place to do your customer service. Customer service is by far the most important. So when you're doing product research, we had one VA that would do mainly product research, and we had a couple when it came to fulfillment. And we had a couple we had 2 for customer service, 1 for fulfillment, 1 for the front end, like product research. And what we did was, with the customer service, they spoke the best English. But you want to make sure that when you SOP it out, is you want them to communicate how you communicate. So, hey, in this situation, say this. In this situation, this is how we respond. And then you keep up with what they do. So for us, when we're sitting there doing 300 plus orders a day, you got to imagine we're getting almost sometimes double the amount of messages. And so with them being in there doing customer service, we would just go in and look through their messages and see how are they responding. And then we would either correct or congratulate. And so if they were doing it right, we congratulated them. If there was a little correction needed, say, hey, instead of doing that, we do this a little bit more this way, because this helps serve the customer at a higher level. And once you are able to get them, because it's hard to SOP a person, but once you're able to get them to kind of stay in these guidelines of this is who we are, this is how our brand speaks, then it's easier for you to put it in. Because we even did it, is we actually had it on a Google sheet, and we put, if somebody messaged you like this is how we respond. And we had it because we got so many of the same messages over and over and over that we were able to say, when they respond like this, you say this. And when they reply like this to that message, you reply like this. If they need help with shipping, you say this. If they need help with tracking, you say this. And we are able to SOP out almost an entire conversation over time. And so I want people to understand that's the one that you're going to need the most time and effort in, because that's the most influx. Yeah, sales is one thing, and then fulfillment's another. Finding the right product, I get that. But your customer service has to be top notch. I'm not sure about you, but when I buy something, if there's an issue with it, I want to be able to talk to somebody and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Can you help me? Or if there's not, like my cable company here, the cable internet is great, but to get even for them to set it up was a pain in the butt because their customer service sucks. So you got to make sure that your customer service is top notch. So SOPing there first, and that comes over time, and just understanding that it's not going to be perfect day one. It's going to take more and more messages coming in, more and more sales, more and more ups, more and more downs. And then you'll be able to have it so SOP that you can go on vacation to Disney World, Disneyland, and actually enjoy Galaxy's Edge and hang out with R2D2 instead of being worried about, oh, did they message these people right? Or, oh, there's a message, I got to respond. It's like, hold on, Chewbacca, before I get this photo op, let me respond to these people. It's being able to have those conversations SOP is the most important, that customer service.
Okay. So, yeah, and for people that haven't ever built an SOP before, it's never going to be perfect when you come out with it. It's more so like, let's just start the damn thing, get it on a doc, and then we just begin the process of updating it every time something new occurs, or we find a better way of doing XYZ. Yep. It's never going to be perfect starting out. It's always an ongoing thing that you just keep updating. So, yeah, just to kind of set expectations of people in the audience, because that's something that's universal when it comes to SOPs or standard operating procedures in general.
Yep, I 100% agree. And that's where I find so many people, even getting into business, is they get afraid because they want it to be perfect. Like, for you to get good, you got to suck first. Just get into it. Like, get in and suck for a long time, and then you'll get good. But you're not going to just go into something and just be good. It's not going to happen. Because even if you're genetically wired a certain way for business, let's say, is yes, you may be the Wolf of Wall Street and be great at sales, but I bet you, like, being great at sales is one thing. But if you don't have a system to fulfill, that's a whole nother thing. Because even with, if anyone knows Alex Hormozy, he was great at sales, and it was actually killing his business because he kept selling and selling and selling, and they kept getting refunds and refunds and refunds. And so he would keep selling, and it kept creating a bigger and bigger problem. Just because you're really good in one thing doesn't mean you're great at everything. So being hyper aware of just get started. Stop worrying about being perfect because you won't be. And you're not going to be good in the beginning. You're going to suck at something. And just be okay with sucking for a little while until you can get good at it. That's how your SOPs are going to be, because you're going to start off by saying, this is how we do it. And then somebody's going to look at it and be like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, because you could have easily shortcutted 6 steps if you just would have done this one thing. You go, oh, I see that now. And then you are able to correct your SOP and make it better. But it has to suck before it's going to be good. You just got to get started.
Nicely put. You know, I like to compare business to sports. And a lot of people just expect to be good right off the bat. Now, you may have natural talent, but regardless, you got to put in some work before you're going to be good, regardless of talent or not. And, like, don't have the same expectation if you're training for a race or training in basketball or whatever. You got to put in efforts to get to the point where you want to be. Take away this instant gratification, because I think this is one of the problems with social media. But people see these big numbers, and then they just have the expectations of reaching those big numbers in a extremely fast time frame. But they didn't see all the blood, sweat, and effort that person put in to get those big numbers. You can't shortcut that process. You got to put that work in too.
Yeah, there's a guy that I was following whenever we were doing the MLM. And he talked about how he had been in multiple MLMs before. He had been in MLMs for, I think, 10 to 15 years. And then he joined this one MLM and went all in. And overnight, he became an overnight success. And he said, it took me 15 years to become an overnight success. So I want people to understand that is if you see someone who just gets into business and blows up, go look at their track record. I bet you they've done something in the past that gave them the skill sets, the mindset to go into that and go quick. Because if you have no experience and you don't have any skill sets that apply to what you're going into, then don't expect to just skyrocket to the top overnight, because you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn a new mindset, a new way of looking at things. You're going to have a new skill sets. If you're doing a digital business, then you have to learn how to speak to people. You got to learn how to sell. You got to learn how to fulfill on a digital product. With e-commerce, you got to learn how to find the product. Then you got to learn how to position your store and how to sell your products, and then how to talk to people even there. But it's all skill sets. So if you are someone new to business and you're hearing this, or you're someone listening and thinking about getting into it, is look at the skill sets you already have if you have skill sets that apply to a certain business, then that may be one that you want to go look at. If it's e-commerce, let's say, if you have an eye for products, maybe you see one that, like, you're sitting there watching Shark Tank, you be like, hey, I know that's going to fail. And then you go and look at it next year and it fails. And you look at a product, but, oh, I know that one's going to win. And then they buy it and then it blows up. Then maybe you can go into e-commerce and have a little bit more success because you have a skill set. But look at what's in your hand first and then go see where you can apply it. Instead of just jumping into something and saying, oh, I don't know what happened. It's like you didn't have any prerequisites. You had no skill sets going into it.
Sup everyone, y'all just watched a clip from one of the episodes of the Side Hustler Society podcast. If you want to check out the full episode, you can click on the link in the description right now or click on the video that's showing in the end screen. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new and hit that bell notification if you want to be notified when another episode drops, and a thumbs up on this video is very much appreciated. I'll catch you in the next one.